Who's going to be the first trillionaire? Is it Bezos or is it Elon Musk? There's a bit of a debate going on, but I think we might be missing the point. There might already be a trillionaire. I mean, we've got the Rothschilds family. Look, I wrote a book originally called What Would the Rockefellers Do, then ended up calling it What Would Billionaires Do, just because it was beyond just the Rockefeller family. And ultimately, I started looking at the Rothschilds family. I was like, I'm not going to go down this hole and go down. But when we look at central banks are privately owned institutions that basically, when you hear Federal Reserve, it's not federal or a reserve. Ultimately, these are notes that are produced and then lent. And so when you control so much of the money supply like the Rothschilds do, they might already be trillionaires. But how would we know? Because there's shell companies and there's all sorts of things where it's hard to understand who owns it, how much is it worth, what's going on. And they're not the people that are in the media that everybody's hearing about. We're hearing about Bezos because obviously Amazon, and I mean, most people are using it all the time and they know what it is. Or, when we hear about Elon Musk, and then we got Tesla and you got the space stuff that he's doing. So it's very seductive and interesting. I live here in Salt Lake City. I found out the Rothschilds own Rio Tinto, which is a big mine here and in other places. And when you think about all the businesses that they have influence over or that they're dealing with, I just think that that's something to consider beyond what you've heard. So when it comes to someone being a trillionaire, let's look at what that means. I mean, if Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos was to get there, I mean, it's not like they can spend that amount of money. One, it'd be impossible to figure out how to just spend that on yourself. You'd have to be, hopefully, have a big enough vision and adding enough value to so many people that it continues to grow or be something. And some people find that to be extraordinarily unfair. We hear Amazon didn't pay taxes. Well, guess what? They paid a lot of taxes. Beyond income tax, there's 12 other taxes. We see sales tax and excise taxes, and there's property taxes for the buildings. There's self-employment taxes for the employees. And the reality is we can sit around and get extraordinarily frustrated with the amount of wealth that we see very few people have, or we can start to look at what is it that they're doing. Now, if it's cronyism, or if it's theft, or if it's robbery, or if it's deception or coercion, screw them, that sucks. But that's actually more the exception to the rule than the rule. The reality is we all have our own ability to create value. But if we don't have a compelling vision, if it's not beyond our current problems, if we get into a self-centered, selfish scarcity state of mind, we're thinking that, hey, it's a zero-sum game where one person wins at the expense of another. And when we buy into competition rather than collaboration, or when we look at envy and scarcity rather than peace and prosperity, we lose. The reality is people that have an extraordinary amount of wealth, the majority of the time did it because they served others. They solved problems. They delivered value. And money follows value. And some people are like, but there's only so many resources to go around. Well, even if that's true, like money and resources sometimes are kind of used as synonyms, but resources and pie are also used as synonyms, but money and pie are not the same thing. If I eat pie, it's gone. Nobody wants to eat it after that because we know where it's coming out. No good. So that's true. But money, even if there was a limited amount, they're adding it to screens as I speak, there's an unlimited number of times it can exchange hands. So money and pie are not the same thing. Exchange creates wealth. So instead of complaining or being frustrated or pointing out the problem or thinking we need to redistribute wealth, it's time to redistribute education. It's time to unlock your hidden assets, your mental capital, knowledge, wisdom, insight, strategies, and tools, or your relationship capital, people, networks, organizations, friends, and families. That's the hidden capital. How can you take your mental capital to serve others and solve problems? Because then dollars will follow. Because dollars follow value. One of the biggest ways to create value is vision. The bigger the vision, the more compelling the vision, the bigger the problems it solves, the more people it impacts. That absolutely is what drives value. So rather than looking at them and vilifying them, it's easy to villainize the wealthy because it kind of takes away the responsibility from ourselves. But if instead we'd say, what good have they done? What value have they provided? What services have they brought? What innovation has existed? And, there's still so much more to be invented, but if we spend our time in complaining and concern rather than solving and serving, then we lose. So what would it take for you to focus on value creation first? I stopped researching the Rothschilds because it was a dark, ugly, I didn't like what I was reading about. It seemed kind of like a scary place. And look, I know that a lot of people get on videos and by the fifth video, they're in some big conspiracy theory. The reality is, what if you took a break from that? What if you looked for the answers within yourself, in the quiet space, in the void where there's a blank slate for creation? I know within there's an inner knowing, there's a gut feeling. A lot of times life comes in gentle nudges or light feathers to the face. Easy to ignore in the moment if we're frustrated and angry and wanting to burn these trillionaires or multi-billionaires at the stake, instead of looking at our own lives, facing our own problems, facing our own fears, and going out there to serve humanity, connect with others. Money isn't the root of all evil. Money isn't even a bad thing. Sure, people abuse it. Sure, people chase it and they put it above all else. But money is a byproduct of value creation. Money is a snapshot. It's a representation of a moment in time. It's a man-made efficient tool to exchange with one another. Money represents value, but it's not why you're valuable, and it doesn't dictate what you're capable of doing. Money doesn't represent your potential or your destiny. It simply is a tool that we can utilize to engage others' abilities, their resources, their ideas, their insights, and their service. So if we can focus on what we do best, if we can focus on creating a vision, which is the rarest commodity in the world. Not enough people focus on vision. They focus on complaining, but vision isn't just something you already know how to do or achieve. That might be a goal or an objective, and that's helpful. A vision's beyond your current capabilities. To truly have a vision, it requires collaboration. It requires co-creation. It requires delegation. It requires being bold enough to speak something, even if you don't know exactly how to achieve it in the moment, because it's beyond your current reach. And when you have a vision that's compelling, that adds massive value, that's the container that tells us what to pay attention to. It tells our brain what's important, and it is a key to lasting wealth and, most importantly, happiness. Dollars are a byproduct. Dollars are a byproduct. Vision is where we win. Value is the way, and what happens is dollars are the byproduct, and ultimately prosperity becomes your state of being. It's time to connect with others. It's time to exchange value. It's time to serve in our greatest capacity. And sure, if you want to have an inquiry of who's going to make it to the trillion first, the reality is who has the most compelling vision and a commitment to that execution. And maybe someone already did, but they didn't want to be known for it. Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.